Thanks.
Here you go, Lillian.
Looks like she might have lost connection right as she was about to start talking, unfortunately.
Am I back?
Yep, you're still here. You're still here. I think Lillian lost connection.
All right. I'm sorry, y'all. We are having an adventure today with this new setup. But the reason we're doing it is so I can bring you some cool sewing techniques. So I am Mary Beth Temple, and I'm sure that Lillian will be back later to talk about how fabulous Your Inspirations is and how to reach out to us. But what's going to happen, normally you see my smiling face at the beginning, but I'm down a camera today, so we're going to talk about machine applique. Now, in theory, we are doing the leaf pillow, and I'm sure either Lillian or Nate will drop a link to that pattern in the chat so you can download the free pattern, which is available on Your Inspirations. But there's a lot of sort of moving parts, no pun intended, to machine applique. So we're just going to ease into this with some tips and tricks, and we're going to just jump right in and get started. So what is machine applique specifically? Now, this is the leaf pillow that I'm going to work on today a little bit. And by applique, all we mean is we're taking one piece of fabric and applying it, applique, which is French. We are applying it onto another piece of fabric, and then we're going to stitch around it. Now, there's hand applique, there's machine applique, which is what we're doing today, and there's 900 ways to do it. So I'm just going to show you a couple of samples. So this is what we would call a satin stitch, which is a wide zigzag stitch stitched very close together. And then we have some other samples. This is an applique that was just done with a straight stitch. You can see it's just straight stitch, sort of free-forming. You just stitch every which way, and it's still applique because it's applied to the project. This one here, let's see if I can find it. I have two more I want to show you before we get to the good stuff. Now, this didn't use the zigzag or satin stitch, this used a blind stitch. So this is an instance in which seeing the stitching is not so important. So the two things to think about when you're choosing what kind of stitching you want to do is, how much do you want to see it? Is it a visual element, or is it just there for utility? This is more of a utilitarian look. It's on there to hold the apple on. It's not there to draw your eye. All this other kind of machine embroidery is there to draw your eye. And then the last one I wanted to show you is I just love this guy. It seems very Halloween to me. I don't know why, maybe because it's orange, because it's an octopus. But this is also a zigzag stitch. But the difference between this one and the one that we're going to do on camera is the stitches are farther apart. So it's the exact same technique, but you can get a completely different look by lengthening your stitches. But I just noticed that my pal Lillian from Your Inspirations is back. So Lillian, do you have anything you need to add before I move on with my life?
Thanks, Mary Beth. Yeah, sorry, I lost connection there for a moment. I think you've got it sussed. We'll put a little bit more info in the chat for everyone as well. But yeah, I'll leave it over to you.
Terrific. Okay, I am moving some pieces around, guys. Give me 1 second. Again, I do this than my normal. There's a lot of moving parts. So about with applique, and that is preparing. Is preparing your fabric, preparing your sewing machine, all that good kind of stuff. So you're going to need a two-sided fusible product with a paper back. So that's a two-sided fusible product with a paper back. And I'm looking for a piece of it, and of course it is gone. Here is a piece that is I already started to fuse this. So what you're going to do is you're going to, when you print your pattern out, you're going to find the pattern for the leaf, and there's a second pattern for the little leaf center. And you're going to cut that out of your pattern and you're going to use it as a template. So the first thing you're going to do is take your product. I'm using Wonder Under, but there are other products. This is not a Wonder Under class. And you're going to fuse it with a hot iron, following the manufacturer's instructions. When you get this stuff, the instructions are right on there. So I'm going to use that. So now what I have, this is my fabric that I'm going to cut my leaf out of. And this is my Wonder Under with one side fused. So I took the sticky side, attached it to the wrong side of my fabric, and used my iron. This is just a mini embroidery iron. Again, I don't want to have my big iron on camera. I don't think it'll fit. But we're using that to heat that down. And I would spend a little more time on that than I did just now. I'm just trying to get you to the general point. So then the next thing I'm going to do, as I said before, my goodness, y'all, there's too many parts and pieces going on here. I'm going to use my leaf template. Here's my leaf template. And I'm going to just hold it. You can tape it down if you want to, but honestly, I don't get that crazy about it. And I'm going to just use a regular art pencil. And I'm going to draw around the template. And I'm drawing, it's just paper. I'm drawing right on the paper. So it seems like it's a lot to do, but it truly, truly isn't. And again, I'm not going to do the whole thing on camera or else we won't get to the sewing part, which everybody will be sad about. But I'm going to go ahead and trace that out. And you can see it's just like drawing on a piece of paper. It's a lot less complicated than it needs to be. When I have my leaf all drawn out, like I do on this piece, I'm going to cut it out right on the line. I'm going to be as neat as I can. Still leaving that paper on. And we want to be as neat as possible. I might, again, if I was not on camera, I'd probably use a pair of, I know we have little sharp pointed embroidery scissors at Michael's. I might use those to really get into those corners, but I'm just going to cut the whole thing out and be as neat as I can. So I'm going to cut out my 2 leaves and I'm going to cut out my 2 centers. Etc. So that's all that's going to happen there. I'm just going to, and you can go back in and trim it. It's, I wish you could touch it. It's stiff because of the paper. The paper sort of feels like wax paper, if you know what wax paper or parchment paper is. It's about that weight. And again, it's stuck right onto the fabric. So I don't have to worry about moving it or losing it. The other thing I didn't mention that I want to mention now, because it's going to come up, before you apply the Wonder Under or the 2-sided paperback fusible, whichever brand you're using, you want to make sure to iron the fabric first. You want that fabric to be tight and smooth and not have wrinkles. You know, sometimes you get it out of the, these are fat quarters that we have at Michael's. Sometimes you get it out of the package and it has all these creases in it. So definitely press it first. And the other thing with these kind of fat quarters, these sort of batik fat quarters, I actually, for this one, I printed ironed my fusible onto the right side of the fabric because I want to see the wrong side. I thought this would make a more interesting leaf than this did. I wouldn't do that with a print pattern, but since this is a batik or a tie-dye and you can see the ink on both sides, it's totally cool to look in there and see which one you prefer. So in this instance, I actually fused it onto what you would normally call the right side of the fabric because I want to see the wrong side in my pattern. On this one, I fused it onto the wrong side, which is what I would normally do because I want to see the right side of the fabric on my piece. The next thing that you're going to do, and again, let me just see if I've got a little sample here. I'm laughing because again, those of you that have taken classes with me before know we're usually doing hand sewing or we're doing knitting. So it's just not quite as many moving parts. When I'm ready to fuse my pieces together, so I'm going to iron the fabric first. In this instance, I'm using the pink for my base. And I didn't cut it down. I'm less interested in talking about how to make the specific pillow and more interested in talking about machine applique. So when I'm ready to fuse my pieces together, so in this instance, I have the right side of my base fabric up and I have the right side of my little fusible applique up. I'm going to get in here and I'm going to peel the paper. And it comes right, do you see how it up? Comes right up with no problem. And just discard that paper, you don't need it anymore. So now I'm gonna put it, so the sticky side's on my fabric. And remember, I ironed that fabric a little bit just to sort of warm it up and get things going. And now I'm gonna use my iron. Again, following the manufacturer's instructions, which is usually a relatively high setting, about as high as your fabric can hold. And I'm using quilting cotton from Michaels, so of course I can go with a pretty high setting and no steam. And it might, again, follow the instructions. I'm being sort of, I'm sort of rushing it through here so we can move on to the next step. But you can, you know, sometimes they'll tell you just hold in a certain spot for 3 seconds. You want to make sure that everything overlaps. You want to make sure that there's no sort of lines where the outside of your iron is that don't get heat. You want to make sure that everything has heat. And this is just a small piece and our leaves are just a small piece. But if I was working on a super large piece, I would start at the center and work out so that it stayed flat. And I would also, we call it tacking or basting. You know how when you're sewing something together and you put a couple of hand stitches in it to baste it so it doesn't move, you can just hit it real quick with the iron to make sure it stays in place and then go back and heat it up the way the instructions tell you. Lillian, do we have any questions while I change out the iron?
We seem to be all under control. A couple of people asked for the pattern, so I've dropped that into the chat. I do have a question. I was just wondering, like, how long do you iron for and sort of how do you know when it's done?
At the risk of sounding like I'm not being helpful, it really is manufacturer's instructions because it depends on what product you're using.
Okay, that's good to know.
Wonder under is about 3 seconds per spot. Again, the tricky bit is to make sure that you've ironed it first to sort of prepare the fabric. And also
is ironing is ironing it first just so like there's better contact between the two fabrics, or what's the benefit of ironing first?
There are 2 reasons you want to iron it first. One is to, like you said, sort of warm the fabric, since it's the heat that's going to make the fabric adhere. You're literally warming it up to give the surface, if the surface is warm, then the one under or whatever product you're using grips better. But also wrinkles. Like I said, if you pull one of these fat quarters out of a package, it's creased from how it was packaged, right? If you're buying individual fat quarters, they're folded up onto a cardboard, or this was a bundle. So it's tied up in an adorable little bundle and it has a bow on it or everything. Well, it's going to be wrinkly when it comes out. You do not want to permanently press a wrinkle into the piece you want to cut your applique out of.
Yeah, it would make like a funny little bubble or something, wouldn't it?
Yes, or give you, you know, like an ugly crease.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you so much. That was super helpful.
You're welcome. Do we have anything else before I move on to the next step?
No, I think we're rearing to go.
All right, I know we're ready to go, y'all. I just need to move my feet so I can reach the foot pedal. If you guys could see my camera set up right now, you would laugh and laugh and laugh. Because this is not how we normally do things. The other thing I neglected to mention, because I stink, is thread. Now, you can do this with all-purpose thread. We have all-purpose thread at Michael's, but also, let's see if I can get the camera to go do this. You can see I'm using our embroidery thread product. It's a lighter weight. It's super silky and shiny. And again, remember how we were talking about earlier about sometimes you want the applique to just have a utility aspect and sometimes you want it to be pretty. In the pillow that we were looking at earlier, we use that sort of vivid embroidery thread for the sewing machine to give it some punch. You see how shiny and glossy that is? It has, I think it has rayon in it or polyester or both. But that's why I used that one in particular, because for this project, we want to see that edging, right? The other thing, it is a lighter weight. So when you're making these stitches sort of densely and close together, it doesn't bulk up and look ugly. You can use all purpose. Since we have the machine embroidery floss at Michael's, or thread at Michael's, I would absolutely use it. Do not use button and craft. I know we talk about this on the hand sewing class all the time, but button and craft is made specifically for hand sewing. You don't want to run it through your machine. And do not use our new anchor floss for machine embroidery. That's for hand embroidery. It's a fabulous product, but not for this, even though it comes on a spool now. All right. So the next thing I need that is extra is stabilizer, because the fusible is going to keep the one fabric in place on top of the other fabric. But if I'm going to put that many stitches in there, I want to make sure that the fabric doesn't gum up, that it doesn't get jammed up into the feed dogs. I want to make sure that it doesn't sort of crinkle up. So there are three types of stabilizer that we have. One is cutaway, which you use it as a stabilizer, which we're about to do, and then you cut the excess off. One is wash away, which is a water soluble product that you use as a stabilizer, which we're about to do. And then you wet your completed project and it peels off and dissolves. And the third is tear away, which is what this is. And this has almost a paper consistency. So when I'm done, I'm just going to rip this right off the back and it will be gone. That whatever I don't need will be gone. But again, you need a stabilizer for machine embroidery. No matter what kind of machine embroidery project you're doing, you need a stabilizer to keep that fabric from getting gummed up into the feed dogs. So the other thing I would recommend you do, even if you're doing this pillow, test. These are little scraps. These are extra pieces that I had from prepping for the leaves. Do all your testing on this. Don't just jam onto your sewing machine and start the project, because you want to be able to adjust the settings, adjust the tension until you get the look that you want. You will notice though, because there are points and curves in my leaf pattern, I cut a sample that had some curves on it and some points on it, because I want to practice. I want to check all that out before I start my actual project. So I'm going to go ahead and do the zigzag stitch that we had on the original pillow. I want it to be pretty wide. So I have set it, let's see, the sewing machine, the widest is 6. I've set it to 5. This is a Singer heavy duty, by the way. Your sewing machine will always be different. And I want those satin stitches. I want to see satin stitches. I want them pretty close together. So I have my length down on a 2. Let's see again. Let's go to the camera. So I have my length on 2 and I have my width on 5. And I'm going to test this and see if I like it. And if I don't, then I can make changes, right? Because we're doing a practice piece. All right, so you want, for machine applique for satin stitch, I'm just going to give this a little test and see. Okay, so we're way too far to the left. In a perfect world, you want your needle, when it's on the right-hand side, to be on that tippy little edge of the fabric. Again, I'm not 100% sure I can get closer, but I'm gonna try. I want the right hand side of my zigzag to be right on that line, because if it's too far out here, the stitches tend to not lay flat. And if it's too far in here, I'm going to see this cut edge, and I don't want to. So as best I can, knowing that nobody's perfect, I'm going to try and keep that right hand side of my zigzag on the outer edge of my applique. Sorry. There we go. So I can already see that I would like it to be a shorter stitch length. I want them to be closer together. Now, the other thing, and we talk about this on the pattern, if you're taking a curve, if you can, you want to keep the piece moving. So you can see I'm not fighting with the feed dogs, but I'm keeping that piece moving. If I stop and start and stop and start and stop and start, I am going to tend to have some sort of jagged, you can see when you stop and start. And so if you keep going, if you keep the machine going while it's curved, you have a smoother line. Now, let's see if once again, we can get a little closer. These are still a little farther away than I would like. So I'm going to shorten my length, not my width. I'm happy with the width. I like that width. I think that's going to be lovely. So I took my length down to 1, and I'm going to try again. Let's see what happens. And I'm going to have to do a couple of inches of it because I can't see what I'm doing otherwise. Let's see if I can slide this around. So now we're a little closer together. I'm wondering, let's see, if I go down into my buttonhole settings, and again, I'm going to keep going until I get the stitch that I like. There we go, that's closer. And I'm going to make a couple mistakes on purpose so you can see what I'm talking about.
I have a couple of questions here, Mary
Give me
Beth.
1 second. Let me just get to the tippy end here.
Mhm.
And I'm going to pull it out so I can show it a little more closely, Lillian.
Of course.
Okay. Now, remember just a couple things. Your sewing machine settings may or may not be different because every sewing machine is a little bit different. Again, this is a Singer heavy duty. I'm 99% sure this is a machine that we have at Michael's. If we don't have this exact one, it's very similar. But you can see I have my width on 5 and my length, I brought it all the way down into the buttonhole setting. Your sewing machine might be slightly different, and that's why we do tests. So remember, the width is literally the width of the stitch. I set mine on 5. I was really happy with that, so that's what I did. But the length in a zigzag, the length is how close together those stitches are going to be. So here's some areas where I stopped and started. You can see I have these little jags right here, which are not attractive. Here's an area where I went off the edge. I didn't stay neatly on the edge, and you can see that pink showing through. Again, just not as neat. And then here's an area where I went too far inside, and you can see that sort of raw edge poking out here. So what you want to do, as best you can, is stitch right along the edge. Okay, Lillian, you had some questions?
I do, yeah. I just have a comment first. It's interesting to see how the luster of the thread really comes out once you've shortened the length.
Yes, because you are creating essentially a denser fabric.
Yeah.
So that's
beautiful.
a really good point. So you don't get a lot of sheen here when the stitches are super far away, but here, where they're super close, you get really sort of a glossy border.
And
that's
the
again
color
what we
is
were
richer too.
Yeah, But again, that's what we were talking about earlier about the difference between utility and visual element. If I didn't want to see this, but I still wanted that satin edge, I might choose a color that more closely matches the fabric that I'm appliquing, if that makes sense. If I want to see it, I want contrast. If I don't want to see it, I want coordination.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Okay, we do have a couple of questions. The first one is from Tony. They ask, what foot is that?
Okay, in the pattern, we recommend that you use an open toe foot because it is easier to use when you're doing satin stitch. The thing you have to watch with satin stitch is, particularly if you're not using the embroidery thread, it can bulk up and then the foot doesn't move smoothly. So an open toe foot would be optimal. As it happens, this particular machine, not the brand, but this actual machine that we had does not have an open toe foot. So I'm using just a regular zigzag foot. It's not optimal, but it works. And if you download that, when you download that pattern, there is some information on sewing machine feet written right into the pattern.
That's very handy, thank you. The other question is from Sylvia. She asked, did you drop the feed dog?
I did not drop the feed dog because I need the, so for those of you who are relatively new to sewing, the feed dog is this little guy right here with the ridges on it. And what the feed dog does is it goes like this and it grabs the fabric and pushes it through. And the settings that you use will make it push through either more or less quickly. If you're doing the style of machine embroidery called freeform, there is a button on these machines. Again, this is not my machine, so I don't know exactly where it is, but it's usually on the side or the back that will drop these feed dogs away. And then the only thing that is moving the fabric through the machine is you. It is your hands. It is how you are manipulating because you don't have the mechanical assist from the feed dog. So we do that for freeform embroidery. And now if I was doing a quilt, I wouldn't be so worried. But if I was doing something like this with just a few layers of cotton, if I was doing freeform, in addition to using a stabilizer, I might pop it into an embroidery hoop to get some tension on it to make sure that it stays out of the base. But for satin stitch embroidery, for applique, for machine embroidery stitches that your machine does, because again, every machine has different stitches that it likes to do, you would not drop the feed dogs because you want the mechanical assist. You're going to adjust the settings on your machine as best you can to get the stitch that you want. You're not going to physically manipulate the fabric to get the stitch. I hope that made sense. And if you're a new sewer, just ignore everything I just said because it's confusing.
No, it made perfect sense. Thank you for explaining that.
Anything else, Lillian?
No, we're all good here.
Okay, and I hate to ask on camera, but can you give me a time check, please? Because with the camera situation I had earlier, I don't know what time it is and how much time I have left.
Of course, we're at 34 minutes past the hour.
Thank you. Okay, so let's take a look. So here is my tearaway stabilizer that I used, and I used it to keep that fabric out of the feed dogs. And when I'm done, I'm literally going to tear it away. I don't need it anymore. I'm going to pull right up against the stitching. Now, because this particular product, again, there's all kinds of tearaway stabilizers, different brands, different products. You use what you like to use. This particular one wants to tear at the holes. So if you had a lot of mush left, you might want to go in there and tear out the little bits. And I'm also thinking for that leaf, which is pretty big, I'm also thinking I don't want all that paper behind my leaf. So I might get it started. And I might, now in this place, obviously I can just reach in and do it, but I might tear it away behind the leaf too, because I have my fusible, which is giving that fabric a little bit of structure. So I'm thinking if I want to lay my head on that pillow, I don't want this paper stabilizer behind it. So I'm gonna tear it away. Again, if I was doing my leaf, I'm gonna tear it away on the inside too.
I don't know if it's just me, but that looks so satisfying.
Yes, yes, it is. What's that hashtag on TikTok? Oddly satisfying.
Yeah, I think this is like one of those things where like you'd finish and you'd be like, oh, I just want more.
Also, it makes, again, with the vagaries of today's tech, I don't know if you could hear it, but it makes a little ripping sound too, which is also very satisfying.
It reminds
but
me.
I'm gonna pull all this out because again, it's stiff, it's paper, you know. I'm just gonna pull it all away because I don't want to lay my head if I'm watching TV on my pillow or it's behind my neck or behind my back. I don't want to lay on paper, you know. I'm just going to take it out, but you can see it stays under the stitching and keeps all that stitching neat.
And so removing it would give like the softer feel to the fabric again.
Yes, because now this is going to be the softest part, right? My backup fabric, because there's nothing on it, right? This is going to be relatively soft because it's flexible. It does have fusible on it. It is stiffer than this is, but it doesn't have that crunchy paper feeling because the only thing that's in there is the glue, right? So it's still pretty flexible. It's still comfortable to lay on. If you left the paper, would it be the end of the world? It would not. But the other thing, again, I don't know about you guys, when I'm making pillows, I want to be able to wash them. I want to be able to take that pillow form out and give them a bath, and having that paper stabilizer out is going to make cleaning the pillow cover easier as well. So let's go back and talk about this pillow specifically. And then I'll stitch for a little while and answer questions. But again, this was an instance in which we're not going to be able to make an entire pillow on camera because it's too much work. So what we did here, so you're going to cut your front fabric. Again, the dimensions are in the pattern. I want to say it's 13 inches for a 12-inch pillow form. And then you're going to trace, you're going to cut your fusible, you're going to fuse onto the two contrasting colors. And out of each of the two contrasting colors, you're going to cut one leaf and one center. So if you call this the A color, here's my A color leaf, here's my A color center, again, just for contrast. And you may notice for this particular pattern, whoever did the original sample, they changed colors. And again, I know I keep talking about it, but it's an interesting, you know, these are very artistic. You want to be creative. And just because you're using our pattern doesn't mean that you don't want to put your own creative spin on things. So do you want more contrast? Do you want less contrast? Maybe I would make it, you know, black and white, make the thread all red. It depends on what interests you as a sewist. And it depends on what your personal home decor is like. So I'm going to fuse the fusible paper, the Wonder Under or whatever product you use, onto my contrast colors. And I'm going to trace the pattern that we gave you in the print pattern. And I'm going to cut out my leaf and my centers. I didn't do the centers on camera earlier because again, we were talking tips. I'm going to peel the paper up. I will say, and I'm doing this just so you can see it. When I first peeled the paper up, of course, it was really easy to do because I had left myself a little tab. Sometimes you can see, sometimes you have to sort of dig in there to get it to split. There it goes. If you can't get in there with your fingernail to peel it apart like I just did, sometimes using a straight pin to sort of pick up the corner will do it. So after I'm all cut out, I'm going to peel the paper and discard it. Then I'm going to fuse one leaf onto my base fabric as shown in the photo, and I'm going to satin stitch all the way around it. Then I'm going to fuse my second leaf onto the base fabric as shown in the photo or at the angle you wish, and I'm going to zigzag all around it. Then I'm going to fuse my centers onto the assembled leaf and zigzag around it. And then I'm going to fuse my second center on there. and zigzag around it. So that is sort of the order of operations for the pillow. The other thing that we talked about is how I like to be able to take my pillow forms out. So in this case, what we gave you is instead of having just a solid back and then you're stuck with that pillow form in there forever, we have instructions on here to cut 2 backs. And then you would turn it up and hem it on both sides. And then actually, hang on one second. I'm gonna pop this pillow out because I think it's easier to see without the pillow in it. So when I assemble this all together, I have an overlap. See how big that overlap is? And that's so it one side overlaps on the other, so you don't see so much of that pillow. Now, obviously, the sample I just showed you, we saw a fair amount of pillow, but that was because I had just stuffed that pillow in there. You could, if you wanted to, there's a couple things you could do. You could put buttonholes on the top overlap and hand sew a button underneath. You could put a couple of decorative buttons if you wanted. The other thing that I know we have at Michael's is the Velcro that is good for fabrics. There's little Velcro dots that you can get that are suitable for fabrics, and you could just put Velcro here and Velcro there, or you could do sewn on Velcro. But you could put a closure back here if you wanted to. But the idea, once again, is to make sure that you can get that pillow form in and out so you can clean the clean that pillow cover and have it forever. You know, when the dog barfs on it or the kid spills Kool-Aid on it or, you know, whatever happens. Do we have any more questions, Lillian?
We do. There's a question here from Tony. They ask, any suggestions on how to end the stitching for once you get to the end of the leaf shape? And also, do you need to backstitch to lock it in at the beginning and end?
What I would do, let's see if I can tell what they did here. Hang on, I'm having a thought. Okay, what I generally do in a circumstance like this, and it does look like this is what the model maker did. Again, I did not make this pillow. It was provided to me by my good friends at Your Inspiration, so I could show it to you. It looks like they started on this side and went in this direction all the way around and then sort of overlapped. Let's see how close I can get before it gets blurry. Do you see how this straight edge on the bottom sort of overlaps the other? So I would not lock stitch at the beginning because who cares? I'm going to stitch over it anyway. And it looks like there is a small amount of back stitching right here. So I would definitely back stitch there. Alternatively, again, depending on your sewing machine, my personal everyday sewing machine has a lock stitch function that you can find on your sewing machine. It's usually a picture of a key that you hit the lock stitch, hit the foot pedal, and it locks itself off and ties it off in that direction. But whether your sewing machine does that or not is up to your sewing machine. And then in this instance, so again, it looks like this was done first. This guy's on top of there. So I don't care what's going on under there. I don't care if it's lock stitched or not, because I'm covering it. So that's not going to peel out. So you can see they applied this one first, and then this one overlaps. This leaf is on top of this stem. So again, in this particular instance, it looks like they started there. Here, I'm seeing the same thing on the centers, that they began in this direction, probably didn't lock stitch. You can also see there's some overlap in the stitching here because that top piece goes down into a very narrow point. You can see how some of the stitching bleeds into some of the other stitching, and that's perfectly fine. And again, that's how that's going to work when you cut a piece like that that has a very sharp point. Lillian, do we have anything else?
That was such an excellent explanation. Thank you. We don't have any more questions at the moment, but if anyone has any, please pop them into the chat and we will ask Mary Beth them.
Yeah, because I feel like I've showed you most of what I wanted to show you. So let's see if there's any more questions. I don't know. I still don't know what time it is.
We have 15 more minutes.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and cut this leaf out, and you guys can ask me questions if you want. So one of the things I noticed earlier, to make things go a little quicker, I cut around the outside of the leaf section And then I went in and cut out the little spots in between. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on camera. Well, Lillian and I chat if you guys don't have any additional questions. And then I'm just going to go ahead and talk about how this all works, because again, this was a very fancy project to try and do in an hour, which is why I wanted to make sure I got all my tips in first. And now we can just sew until it's time to move on.
Tony said thank you for the explanation and great demonstrations and awesome explanations. So thanks, Mary Beth.
Oh, thank you.
And we do have a question here from Cindy. They ask, any questions on keeping the stitches even?
Honestly, even if you are a new sewist, one of the things that there's two things that are happening. One is this fusible is going to help keep the stitches even. And the other thing is that tearaway stabilizer is going to help keep the stitches even. Having all that excess underneath there gives you a super firm base to sew on. Again, I would practice. You know how I made that little practice swatch? I would practice as many times as I needed to. I would especially practice going around curves, because that can be a little intimidating when you're first starting. And the other thing I would point out is it's okay to go slow. It's not a race. The trick for this pattern, because there's so many curves and points, is you need to go as slow as you need to go in order to be comfortable stitching, while also not stopping and starting. Because remember, stopping and starting is going to give you little jagged edges that you may not want. So it might be a situation of practicing. And again, if you're unfamiliar with stabilizers, if you're unfamiliar with using double-sided fusible with paper, if you're unfamiliar with applique, I would absolutely practice on some little pieces first, and then make this beautiful pillow and have the beautiful pillow forever. But there are also no applique police, so nobody's going to come to your house and tell you you did it wrong. You know, if you're happy with your end project, then you're happy. But you see how quick this goes now that I'm not trying to go in and out and in and out and in and out. I'm just going, I cut my shape around the outside, and now I'm just cutting out my little divots. Makes it go much more quickly. Lillian, do we have anything else?
We do. There's a question here from Tina asking, do you recommend pre-washing the fabric?
This is a tricky question. If I am making garments or something I know I'm going to wash a lot, I pre-wash everything. That said, a lot of times it is not recommended that you pre-wash fat quarters because of the way they're prepared. Sometimes they can go a little off center if you pre-wash them before they're cut into anything. So I think that's dealer's choice. I am a person who washes everything. I just do, because I don't want to make something and then when I wash it, have it do something I'm not expecting. But again, most people who are not me do not recommend pre-washing fat quarters. If I was using yard goods, I absolutely would have pre-washed this. I pre-wash fabric as soon as it comes into my house, because if I want to use it, I want to, you know, we all get, what's the word I'm looking for? We all get, you know, instant gratification. I would do it right now. So I tend to pre-wash my fabrics when they come into the house, unless they're fat quarters. And then if I get wild hair and I want to use the fabric that I have, it's already prepped. And I can just grab it and sew.
And we have another question about fraying. Does the fusible web help keep the material from fraying?
Two things are going to prevent the fabric from fraying. One is the fusible web and the other is your stitching right on the edge. The only time you would see fraying on a project like this is if you went too far inside, like I mentioned. If you went, if when you were stitching, you went too far in, this could conceivably fray. Now look, I'm trying to make this fray and it's not doing it because of the fusible, the double-sided fusible. But it's still, it's not a good look. And you could conceivably have fraying here. Again, if the pillow had a ton of wear, or if you were new to using a fusible and you didn't set it well enough. So, but is this a project that's going to have fraying? No, it really isn't. It's got a double whammy by having both the stitching and the fusible web on it.
I think the colors that you've chosen are just gorgeous, and I'd love to hear what other color combinations people are keen to do or would choose.
It was interesting because I know I sound like I'm in a cave. That's because I'm trying to get my ironing stuff out. I like bundles. I mean, it's kind of fun to pick your own fat quarters, but also sometimes it's not so fun because you can't find ones that you want and ones that coordinate. What I did in this case is I went to Michael's and they had a fat quarter bundle. So it had this green and this sort of teal, which I knew would be fun for leaves. And it had the rose pink. It also had, I think, yellow and blue. But if you purchase a bundle, you know that those fabrics are in the same color family. They're packaged to coordinate. So I like the bundles. And then of course you have stash left over. And it's never a bad thing to have stash left over.
I agree. You can't complain.
Can't complain about having extras. So I'm going to go ahead and just press on this next leaf while we're chit-chatting. Again, just to sort of go over some of the, and again, I did not cut this to the right size. These are just pieces that I have laying around, but let's push you back. Push you back. So once again, I'm going to iron first. Make that fabric a little bit of warm so it grabs, and I want to make sure that I do not have any wrinkles in there. And this is not a full-size iron. This is and I call it my detail iron. I do a lot of costuming. So I use that to get into little points and nooks and crannies. That's not a full-size iron, but again, trying to get my full-size iron on camera, I would have tried to shoot myself. So once again, you saw me peel this up earlier. I'm just going to peel that paper off and discard it. I don't need it anymore. And this now has a slight stick to it. It's a little bit sticky. Now you do want to make sure when you're choosing your product at the store, you want to make sure that you have something that is fusible on both sides, like a Wonder Under, or there's a couple of other brands, Stitch to Steam. I can't think of all of them offhand, but there are some other brands, but you want to make sure it's fusible on both sides because some products are meant to only be fused on one side. So I peeled my paper off. And again, remember me, because I'm crazy, I put the wrong side up on purpose because I wanted the contrast. So here's the right side of my base fabric and the side I want to see of my leaf. Now at this point, it's not sticking. I can move it 911 times. Whatever I want to do is fine. But I don't want to pin it really. I don't feel the need. I'm laying it flat. Also, you might notice instead of trying to press on a real ironing board, I'm pressing on a wool pad. I do all of my quilting pressing, all of my applique pressing I do on a wool pad because it gives you a flatter press than using a regular sewing machine because the wool has some give to it. So you may notice, again, particularly if you're a new sewist, and we tell you all the time, press your seams out, press your seams out, press your seams out. Well, sometimes you look on the right side and you can see a little ridge where the end of that seam allowance was. And it's not a terrible thing, but it's also not the best look. Using a wool piece under your iron will prevent that and make it so that your seams are not, so your seam allowances are not visible on the right side. Quilters use them all the time. I use them just because I like them. So again, remember I was saying earlier, I might want to baste it. It's where I want it. I'm going to hit it all. I'm going to iron it all flat to make sure it doesn't move. Now that is not enough heat to leave this on forever, but it serves the same function as basting. I'm making sure it's flat and now at this point I can't move it. And now I'm going to go ahead again, following the manufacturer's instructions, which I'm pretty sure say 3 to 5 seconds in a spot. So I'm going to leave it there for a little bit and then I'm going to move it. And I'm going to leave it there for a little bit. And I want to pay special attention to the edges because I don't want them to peel up. Remember how earlier I was showing you how they didn't peel up, and that's because I got some really good heat on there. I mean, you also don't want to burn your fabric, but follow the manufacturer's instructions. There will be instructions with your, you know, with your fusible web. It'll tell you right on there how to do it and how many seconds and all that kind of stuff. But pay special attention to the edge, and most of them will tell you no steam. You don't need the steam. You don't want to wet your fabric. Just use a nice heat, whatever kind of heat that your fabric can handle. And again, because this is cotton, it can handle quite a lot of heat. Also, note to self, you can really burn your fingers on this. So it's totally fine to leave that to cool off for a couple of minutes before you pick it up and start sewing. Let me just turn my iron off so I don't set my studio on fire. So once again, I want to have a piece of tearaway stabilizer that covers that embroidery. Now, you could cut one whole piece the size of your base fabric and just use it for everything. But again, since I prefer less stabilizer to more, I'm just going to cut a piece that's about the size of my leaf. And it doesn't, obviously, I just cut like a drunken monkey. It really doesn't matter. I'm going to rip it away anyway. So I want to make sure that I have plenty of coverage around. So now that I'm not going to burn my fingers and I have my stabilizer, I'm just going to go ahead and start sewing. Whoa, that was almost a tragic accident. Let's do it the way they did it. Let's try and start down here on a straight edge. So I want to drop my needle on that. Whoop. I want to make sure it doesn't come unthreaded first because I wasn't paying attention. And I'm going to drop my needle on the outer edge to make sure it's lining up. Sorry, didn't mean to hit the camera like that. And I'm going to keep finagling. Let's see if I can get a little closer. You can see I'm dropping the needle right on the outer edge. And I know my settings are good because I did my practice piece, right? Now, the reason I'm being fussy here, I'm coming up on one of my points and I want to stop sewing where the needle is down on the outer edge. And I'm going to turn the work just a little bit. And I'm going to keep stopping it with the needle down along the outer edge because this is more like a point than a curve. So I want to make sure I get plenty of stitching in there, but I also want to keep that nice sharp point. Some sewing machines, not all of them, have a needle down function, and I would definitely utilize the needle down function for applique. So if I have a needle down function, it's going to make sure that every time the sewing machine stops, every time I take my foot off the gas, that it's going to stop with the needle down. So now I'm around that point, I'm just going to go around this nice curve. Now here we have a point and I'm running out of room, right? So I'm getting to the very end of the point. wait, I got to think. So I want the needle down in the right position. So now I'm going to lift. No, I'm going to go a couple more stitches. I'm going to lift my presser foot. Now the needle's down, so nothing's going to move. I'm not going to have any problems. And I'm going to come back on the other side. Now I have my interior point. Again, let me try and get a little closer. See, when I was talking about how I was moving the sewing machine very slowly to come around here, that's what I meant. So now I have to do it again. And if I need to physically move the fabric, I'm going to take the, I'm going to lift that presser foot and take some of the pressure off it. Now, I have to say, I'm not doing as good as I might be just because the angle that I'm having to sew. It's very difficult for me to see that outer edge, but I'm using that outer edge. Let's see what happens. I guess I could have done the left side before. No, has to be right side.
That's looking good, Mary Beth. I wonder if we can have a quick close up before we wrap up at the end.
Before we what?
Before we wrap up.
Are we getting ready to wrap up?
We sure are. Time flies when you're having fun, right?
All right, I'm going to pull this out then so we can get a quick close up.
Amazing, thank you.
Hang on, y'all. All right, let me get this guy out of the way. So this is what I was talking about earlier about going around those stitches. And you see how every time I move the presser foot, I tried to keep the right hand needle in a very same spot, but I want to cover, I don't want a big gap right there. And I did mention I'm not hitting the edge well because the direction at which I am looking is a little weird. Again, this was not perfect, but it's doing the job. And I would practice. I would definitely practice on a leaf. Elsewhere, I'd practice on some points and curves. And you can see what I mean about the curve here. The curve's doing really well here. I would get up to here. Again, I'd have to lift the presser foot, move the fabric, come down in this direction. Get to here, lift the presser foot, move the fabric. Do you know what I mean? Curves, you don't want to stop. You want to just manipulate the fabric with your hands. But when you have a sharp point like that or a sharp point like that, you have to lift the presser foot, move the fabric, and help the sewing machine figure out where it has to go next. So if we don't, do we have any more questions?
No, we're all good. Cindy said, wonderful demo. Thanks for your time.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I appreciate y'all. I think I'm back to knitting next month, but I'm always happy to see you guys. And I always appreciate when you spend time with me. So I look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thanks so much, Mary Beth. And thanks for joining us today, everyone, for this live community classroom with Michaels. Don't forget to share your work with #MakeItWithMichaels and #YarnStow. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and of course the recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. Thanks so much, Mary Beth. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.